Hello, everyone. Something arose to me. I wanted to speak about it. It was also inspired by something I read. There's a song that I'm listening to right now. I can't play it on the background because it is I'm recording with my phone. But the song is, the name of the artist is NOWT, and the name of the song is Everyone is Asleep, comma, except you. So I wanted to, I guess, give some sort of talk about something I read. I was feeling a bit strange, so I went on, Chat GPT, and I asked, a question which I had an personal opinion on. And the question was pretty much, in Vedic thought, can somebody who has attained moksha, which is the ultimate highest state, can someone who has attained moksha experience impurity in their lifetime, something like that? And so, to kind of give this context, why I'm talking about this is that it occurred to me. I was honestly driving today, and it occurred to me that what are the options in this life, in this existence? What are the options for a conscious being in a lifetime? And then I realized there's one option where the being doesn't exist at all. For example, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a theist, just this idea arose to me that an eternal, think of it this way, a being can either, okay, I may be struggling to find the words here, but pretty much my attention went to this notion, all right, I'm this conscious being living here, what are the options? One view is that we are eternal, we're this eternal being, and whether it's through the view of religion, through the view of Vedanta, polytheism, let's say monotheistic traditions, polytheistic traditions. There's one view where the person, let's say one option is, just like Socrates was saying also, there's no Socrates. One option is we stop existing, there is no trace of being a being anymore. And then there's another option where actually we don't die, it doesn't stop, you are eternal, whatever it is. It's as if the moment you're this shape, there's conditions that follow. And then it's as if, think of it as eternal beings choosing the option of being eternally in paradise or eternally in ignorance, but either way, it's as if it doesn't stop. So anyways, I asked ChatGPT, can someone who has realized moksha still experience a sort of impurity in their karma? And so I'm going to read for you what's written here, because there was a very important point in it. It says, in Vedic thought, impure karma is believed to be the result of actions, thoughts, and intentions that are rooted in ignorance, desire, and ego. When individuals engage in actions driven by selfishness, attachment, or harmful intentions, they accumulate impure karma, which can lead to suffering and negative consequences in future lives. However, once an individual has realized moksha, which is the ultimate liberation from the cycle of birth and death, they are believed to have transcended the effects of karma. At the state of moksha, one is said to have attained union with the divine and realized their true nature as the eternal self. In this state, the individual is believed to be free from the cycle of rebirth and accumulation of new karma. While a being who has realized moksha is considered liberating from the binding effects of karma, it is important to note that they may still experience the effects of past karma during their time on earth. These effects may manifest as the residual experiences of pleasure or pain based on their past actions. However, this is an important part. It is believed that an enlightened being who's realized moksha remains untouched by these experiences at a deeper level. They may witness the play of karma without personal identification or attachment, as they have transcended the ego and attained the state of equanimity and inner peace. In summary, Vedic thought suggests that an individual who has realized moksha is no longer bound by the accumulation of new, impure karma. While they may still experience the effects of past karma, their state of liberation allows them to remain detached and unaffected by these experiences, residing in a state of inner purity and equanimity. So what is being implied here for all those human beings that are interested in the Vedic idea of enlightenment, moksha, self-realization? This is the point that it's the stopping or the stoppage. It's the stopping of the accumulation of new karma because you are not identifying with it. Here again, I'll read it. It says, it is believed that an enlightened being who has realized moksha remains untouched by these experiences at a deeper level. So, it's the suggestion of this idea that a human being can attain moksha. Which is, you can say, identification with the ultimate, original, true nature of reality. But it doesn't mean the past karma is finished. The past karma may still happen, may still arise, but the idea is that if the being has attained moksha, they are untouched, right? And recently this idea has arose to me where I'm like, okay, it's like nothing. I was thinking about non-duality pretty much, and I was like, okay, it's like what is looking through my eyes is not a thing, and what I see in front of me is everything. So it's kind of like nothing is looking at everything through our eyes. And so I saw both of these kind of being like a yin-yang moment in one circle. And you know what's strange? Here, I'll read I asked something above here before I read this. Here it says, Vedanta teaches that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is the supreme and all-pervading divine consciousness that transcends the material world. It is considered to be the underlying essence of everything that exists. Individuals, on the other hand, are seen as individual souls or jivas, which are distinct from Brahman but possess a divine spark or essence within them. Vedanta teaches that the true nature of the individual soul is identical to Brahman, meaning that at the deepest level there is no separation between the individual and the divine. This concept is often expressed by the saying Tattvamasi, which means thou art that. It signifies the underlying unity of the individual and the divine. While individuals are not considered to be God in the ultimate sense. Vedanta teaches that they have the potential to realize their true nature as divine and express unity with Brahman through self-realization or spiritual engagement. The goal is to transcend the limited identification with the ego and recognize one's true identity as the eternal, limitless, and divine self. So, after reading that, I thought, like, okay, how can the invisible have visible karma? It's our identification as a physical entity, as a shape. In these lectures, I've previously said you're neither the body, neither the mind, because you're aware of it. But there's also, I thought of this idea that, okay, the body and mind have a child. And what is their child? Their child is shape. And if a being does not identify with shape, with any shape, then what has the karma? What can have karma? It's as if, like, there's an underlying universal essence to things. That underlying universal essence, let's say, for the sake of conceptual grasp, is like space. And when you realize the space, you realize space has no shape. It's as if everything that has shape is bound by forces to end up as something. So it's as if, to me, it's as if space is the eternal unshaped, and shapes eternally change in that space. And maybe it's this illusion that we're something and we have to do something, to get to somewhere else, to something else. But what if in actuality, nothing is eternal? Eternally unchanged. And so we human beings fear nothing. Isn't that funny? We fear nothing. And it's kind of like this idea that nothing is identified with something, and the something fears the nothing because nothing is considering it's something. So it's kind of like where our consciousness is arising in the middle of a sandwich, we're sandwiched between nothing, an unconscious nothing and a conscious nothing, and we're the conscious something. such a strange situation. If you consider a shape, then it's like a sort of infinite conditional situation. If you consider you're not a shape, then it's as if, why is the shape here? You know, why is the invisible witnessing the visible? Or why is the inconceivable viewing the conceivable, seeing conception? You know, I touch this table, it is real. But when I touch it, its reality is from my body. When I ask myself, do I touch my body as consciousness, and then my body touches the table and I realize it, and I see in some sense there's an instantaneity of identification with the body. You know, it's kind of like what we move, we have considered we are, right? And when you look at the idea of meditation, when you look at the idea of prayer in meditation, you're in some sense becoming watching your moment like a cinema. You know, in prayer you are in some sense giving your own truths in some sense a sort of inconceivable divine position. You know, there are moments in this life where I feel a rage. I should say a sort of strange rage, not a rage of wanting to break something that is there, but a sort of rage of bizarreness. It's as if there is something bizarre, something is off about how attention is experiencing existence. You know, I think of it this way, that what can a shape do? And if you look at human beings, you know, which are identifying as sophisticated shapes, they're just looking for different shapes. You're either looking for a different shape of yourself, you're either looking for different shapes of others, or you're looking for a different shape of the world. Those people who want to go to the afterlife or want to go to paradise, they want a different shape of the world. Those people who want peace on earth, they want a different shape of the beings that are manifesting right now. And those people who want to be powerful or something very incredible or whatnot, it's as if they want to change of self shape. Everything seems to be a game of finding a shape that is not the shape we're now. And it's strange because from one angle, if we choose not to be a shape, you suddenly feel life begins taking shape. You know, it's like there's this strange power in a unit of a moment. And then either you shape it, either it shapes you. But the realization with the ultimate unity, right? There's this thing, I'm gonna see if I read it earlier. Here, here it says, as one progresses on the spiritual path towards moksha, there is a gradual transformation of consciousness and a deepening understanding of one's true nature. The realization of the eternal and unchanging essence of the self, often referred to as the Atman, diminishes the grip of fear. In Vedic philosophy, it is believed that when one recognizes their identity as the unchanging consciousness underlying all experiences, there is a profound shift in perspective. Fear is seen as an illusory aspect of the transient world, and the eternal nature of the self becomes a source of strength and stability. Additionally, various spiritual practices and Vedic thought oh, here, this is about, actually, here, I'll go up here. It's something about what Ramana Maharshi said. It says Ramana Maharshi emphasized the importance of self-inquiry as the direct path to self-realization and liberation. He taught that by persistently questioning the nature of the self and remaining focused on the inquiry, the illusory ego would eventually dissolve, revealing the eternal and limitless nature of one's true self. In addition to self-inquiry, Ramana Maharshi also emphasized the practice of self-surrender, where one surrenders all thoughts, desires, and attachments. Excuse me. In addition to self-inquiry, Ramana Maharshi also emphasized the practice of self-surrender, where one surrenders all thoughts, desires, and attachments to a higher power or the divine. This surrender is seen as a way to let go of the ego's control and allow the divine or higher truth to guide and reveal itself. Ramana Maharshi's teachings continue to inspire and guide spiritual seekers around the world. You know, maybe we are under the impression that the visible is going to die. And death means an end. But what would be the end of that which is invisible, inconceivable? It would be something conceivable, doesn't have beginning or end, conception as beginning or end, which is another way of saying the truth of the world is unchanging. Yet here on earth, people's truths, they change in accordance to the world. So it's the world that changes and then we change with it. So it's as if the cause is identifying as the effect. If the cause is unchanging, invisible, inconceivable, and the effect is conceivable, visible, and changing. So it's as if that which cannot change has identified with change and fears the outcome of change. But this is the bizarre question: how can the invisible have visible karma? How can an unchanging, how can an eternal being, how can the eternal unchanging temporarily change? Which would imply that the world has never happened. If the cause is inconceivable and unchanging, and something is experiencing something that is conceivable and changing, so it's as if there is no simulation, because not that the original cannot be simulated. There is no truth. If the original truth cannot be get into an illusion, cannot be an illusion. So if nothing is experiencing everything, it's pretty much I'm saying, how can the soul have karma? It's like, how can infinity be finite? How can space have shape? That means even the idea of cause and effect goes out the door. You know, it's kind of like life can have a lot of meaning, but what it has meaning to is meaningless. You know, before this talk, at least I felt lost. Now, now there is nothing to have been lost or to be found. You know, it's kind of like to attain the truth. Is to free the truth from truth. Because the meaning doesn't stop the moment you look for something. It's like, and if you're a shape, the shape can endlessly change. In Vedic thought, where they have the superior transmigratory soul, what is the implication? And it's the implication that there is no ending. That to consider there is an end is an illusion. But if there is no ending, then what is there? That means to not identify with karma is equivalent to not be a being. That means to be nowhere and everywhere. You know, there is this sense of claim. We human beings have a sense of claim to shape, form, outcome. But there are moments where I look at this life and I'm like, what can I say is mine? What can be mine at all? That means it's like disowning the owner. And what are the options? Like what can happen? Either it's endless shape or it's nothing. Either the being continues till the end of time or it never was again. It's as if truth was never truth. And I was never here. And yet, whose life is this? Whose eyes are this? Whose view is this? There is no. It's like who sees the question mark in manifestation? only for me as a being. This is the finale. The finale is that if it's nothing experiencing everything, nothing can't be anything. Did the world lie when it broke us? You know, my body sees a point to life. My mind sees many points to life. And when I think about the idea of what is aware of the mind and body, I can't see a point. If there is no point to life, then there is no pen in our hand to draw any meaning for it. It's weird, you know, it's like there's this whole dualistic nature of cosmological existence and experience, but sometimes I wonder what if, you know, reality doesn't exist not because the world doesn't exist, but because that which experiences the world doesn't exist. And if nothing exists, it's like, what's giving this talk, you know? You know, sometimes I wonder if there's any way like a being can be satisfied. It's like satisfied by what? You either identify with the change or the unchanging, right? Like, what are the options? The being in a past life was like another being. They were like a person, like some, you know, some entity. Or they were like, let's say, some celestial object. They were like some planet or something. Let's say there was some space, some world, and then, you know, maybe like the truth has always been there, you know, in front of the human experience, that before this life we were nothing. Like, it's as if like they ask someone, who were you in the past life, and the person's like, I was nothing. And they're like, what do you mean you were nothing? It's like, no, I was literally nothing, you know, nothing experiencing everything, you know. You know, imagine there's another world where instead of beings trying to be something, yo man, I'm this thing, like this cool thing, that cool thing, this great thing, you know, that great thing. But imagine there's a world where beings, like the moment they realize they're nothing, it's like they're all trying to be nothing. You know, here we're all trying to be something. Can you imagine it's the opposite? Imagine there's nothing. There's a dimension like a side of a coin. And one side of the coin, there's beings that are something, and then they realize they're nothing. And imagine in the other side of the coin, there are beings that are nothing. And when they realize there's something, like that's enlightening. It's like, no way, I'm something. And then on this side of the coin, no way, I'm nothing. Oh man. And it's kind of weird, because if it's the divine life, like there's this view that it's like it's God's life, it's not man's life. That means God's moving everything. If that's the view, what is the point of man? There's no point. See, whether you consider, like, for some weird, strange reason, I'm seeing parallels here, right? That if you go to the path of, let's say, just a pure materialistic approach, you're like, yo man, I'm going to become nothing, right? But if you take the very transcendental approach, it's like you are nothing, and that which is moving is everything, right? It's like, what does the cosmos, like, why does the cosmos have a problem with being an individual? Like, people were like, yo, I was expecting an enlightening talk, but it's all nothing. Guys, I've reached such an unknown moment. I guess maybe this is what happens when you talk about the unknown. You reach a point where you're an unknown being. Imagine there's levels. Level 1, a known being. Level 2, an unknown being. And what if level 3 is an unknowable being? And then level 4, being unknown. And level 5, being unknowable. That means, seriously, if we're unknown, if there's actually what is experiencing life through our eyes is nothing, okay, then there is no reason for anything. And what kind of world would that be, where there is no reason for anything? That means there is no cause and effect. That's our own reasoning. We're like, this happened, this led to that. That means it's strange, thinking about a world where everything is nothing rather than nothing is everything. Everything is nothing is like all beings, all entities are like God. God's will. And imagine you're an eternal being was witness eons, like endless lifetimes, endless manifestations. After some point, you're like, why is anything seeing anything at all, right? Like, what's the point of a non-ending film? What's the point of a film that never ends? What's the point of an eternal experiencer of infinity? Imagine we were in an infinite reality right now. We had infinite health, infinite resources, infinite solutions, infinite problems, infinite of everything. Then what reason would there be for anything? It's as if, I've spoken about it. I called it the ring of the absent heaven, where I was saying, like, okay, there's these four fundamental views to life. I called it 0, 1, to infinity. I use these four symbols. So when I think about it in the zero, let's say, state, nothing. In the singular state, if a being is everything, it's still like nothing. Like if you're everything. In the infinite state, it's as if I'm saying the void is meaningless. If the singular is the totality of meaning, it doesn't need meaning, so it's meaningless also. And in an infinite state, it's meaningless. But in the dualistic state, okay, there's something to lose. Eternity means there's nothing to lose. Enlightenment means there never was anyone to lose anything. So it's weird. It's like there are no losers in the void, or wrongdoers. There are no losers in the singular state. And like oneness, no losers and wrongdoers. And in the infinite, there being infinite losers. I don't know why that's funny. You know, it should be sad, but I don't know why that's. It's like, hey man, in this infinite dimension, you know, there's infinite, you know, winners, but also I don't know, I think I'm reaching this point where I'm like, yo, am I still a conditional entity? Like, what is the person was like, God, give me a sign, you know? And who knew? Nothing is holding a mirror made of everything, and it's looking. You know, like, imagine a being. Imagine there's this being who realizes, oh my God, after years and years of meditation in the Himalayas, it's like, oh my God, I'm nothing, you know? And then, you know, let's say the person's kids come up to it, it's like, yo, you know, what have you... It's like, what's wrong with dad, you know? It's like, dad's realized he's nothing. We have no dad. Sorry guys, I'm trying to give a talk here. It's hard when you realize you're nothing. I don't know. You know, it's like life is a game that we didn't read. We didn't, like, it's like you're playing a game that you, in some sense, didn't know what game it was before you started playing. Usually, let's say, in a gaming sense, like the person is familiar with the game and then plays it, like at least has some sense of what the game is about. And what's even more bizarre is that, like, I don't know if we were more enlightened when we were savage animals. Oh man. Or we're more enlightened now. At least the savage animal had no restriction in its mind, right? But now there seems to be a sort of, like, what is law, what is civility? It's in a sort of maintenance of an invisible mannerism. You know, there was this thing. I think it's. I saw it in an Islamic video. It was very profound. Hopefully, I can remember it correctly. Hold on, hold on. Let me see if I. Let me see if I can find this. It was a distinction between angels and humans. Okay, I think this is what it was. It was like as if God created angels, man, and then let's say beasts, like savage beasts. And so the idea was the angel was like pure reason. And the beast was, let's say, pure savageness. And then the human being who was in the middle had both, which would translate into a sort of savage reasoning. Or reasonable savageness, I don't know. It's like, imagine somebody's savage. It's like, yo, was that savageness reasonable? Oh, man. You know, at least one thing is relieving from this stuff, you know, that the person's like, yo, I'm suffering. Nothing makes sense. What the fuck? And then they're like, wait a minute, though, who is suffering? It's like, let's create a hypothetical situation where a human being had an audience with God, like could ask a question from God. Or something bizarre, if the world is created by God, then in some sense it's as if, is humanity the karma of like an incredibly transcendental being? It's as if is the world the karma of an inconceivable being, but then an inconceivable being wouldn't have karma. And what is freedom, right? When we think of freedom, if you identify as the body, freedom is like, let's say, a sort of, I don't know, immortal continuity to remain as the body. What is the freedom for the mind, you know? So if the freedom of the body is immortality, let's say the freedom of the mind is a sort of contentment. And then the freedom of the soul is eternity, you know? Or let's say the freedom of the body is immortality, the freedom of the mind is eternity, and the freedom of the soul is to realize it was free before needing freedom, maybe. It's strange, you know, a human being lives to claim their life, right? We're all trying to like accumulate something, build up to something. But who the but who is accumulating, you know? It's like I'm experiencing a moment where for the first time I'm wondering, like, whose memories are these? Whose voice is this? Whose eyes are these? Whose view is this? Whose truth? Like, whose truth is this moment? You know, is it my truth? Is it God's truth? Is everything nothing's truth? And so it's as if, like, as a human being, pretty much our analysis is bound to being like, yo, am I a noun? Am I a verb? Like, what am I? So the soul is the idea of like an eternal verb. You know, the body is like a temporary noun. So it's like a temporary noun is wondering if it's an eternal verb. And I'm trying to think before the idea of duality, like as if like what could there be, or how could being have any meaning if there is no self, or a separation of self in the world? That means either we got to choose to be ourself and then we're separate from the whole world, or we choose to be the world and we were never ourselves. But then if you choose not to be yourself or the world, do you see what I'm saying? How it goes beyond the domain of being. It's as if ultimate being is how the being is ultimate, right? How before the being it was just the ultimate. You know, it's kind of like truth simulated itself to realize it doesn't exist. You know what? Experiencing my body, guys, like my human body, like first person point of view from my eyes, it's like watching like a film that's like slowly changing. Like I could totally see how the ancient people had contentment, right? They hadn't seen faster films, you know. So really it's like an identification with maybe the speed of life, right? Our inner realms. Our mind is living a faster life than our body. So if the mind lives too fast, then it will feel like its body is being left behind. Guys, this is on my phone. Let me see if I can chat. Guys, I don't think I can write a message here on my phone while anyways. Somebody's saying, am I in Dubai? Yes, I am. You know, that frozen ice cube from Canada who's melting in Dubai, you know. Somebody in the chat section says, do we need to lose our personality completely? I think the question is, what is the personality? So many traditions, they're just saying like the truth, that like the implication of how it's within is that you wonder about what is looking through your eyes. What is this? Because if somebody asks me, who are you? Like my mind creates an answer. I'm this self. I'm an enlightened guy. Somebody says, who are you again? And I'll be like, I'm an unenlightened guy, you know. They ask again, I'm an enlightened guy. So what I'm saying is, the idea is like an identification with the unchanging, but to identify with the unchanging, I think, is impossible. So it's, you realize you're the unchanging trying to identify with itself through change, but like, I don't know, it's like this world feels like somebody wrote a script And then they needed actors, and they're like, yo, get these souls. These souls are just chilling, you know? It's like emptiness was like, you know, like imagining like this transcendental pure field of consciousness, you know? Somebody was like, I wrote a script, guys. I wrote a script. You know? And they're like, we need actors. Oh my God. Okay, you know, we gotta create people. Do you understand? It's like, it's either, like, what are the options? It's either, here, let me see if I can figure this out. So, 0, 1 to infinity. So, it would be as if, is nothing being everything? Is nothing being everything that is being something? Or here, okay, this is confusing here. I'll say, is nothing being, okay, is not, okay, is nothing being nothing? Is nothing being everything? Is nothing being something, which means duality, two things? Is nothing being something? Is nothing so this is bizarre. The sentence would be like, is nothing nothing? Is nothing everything? Is nothing something? Is nothing infinite? So these would be the questions. I think these are questions never like have been written in English. It's like, yo, Mr.Within's gonna talk about is nothing nothing. Okay, that's for the 0 dimension. So we came to 4 considerations. Is nothing nothing? Is nothing everything? Is nothing something? Is nothing infinite? Then we come here and we say, we come to the singular dimension. We're like, is everything nothing? Is everything everything? Is everything something? Is everything infinite? Like, is it infinite? So these would be the questions for the singular dimension. So for the void dimension, is nothing nothing? Is nothing everything? Is nothing something? Is nothing infinite? In the singular dimension, is everything nothing? Is everything everything? Is everything something? Is everything infinite? Or infinite? Is everything infinite? And then in the dualistic dimension, is something nothing? Is something everything? Is something something nothing? Everything is something something? Is something infinite? And finally we get to infinity. Is infinity nothing? Is infinity everything? Is infinity something? Is infinity infinite? Is nothing nothing? Yes. Is nothing everything? This seems to be moksha. This seems to be God. Is nothing something? This seems to be the soul. Is nothing infinite? Anyways, guys, answer these questions in the chat section, in the comment section below. Answer these 8 questions in the comment section below. You know, it's bizarre. It's like our beings. I think that's what it comes to. Or how can non-being be? How can nothing exist? You see, so it's either everything is nothing, or like nothing is nothing. Everything is nothing, or nothing is everything. So man, the human experience may experience everything as nothing. But the divine is experiencing nothing as everything. So the value of nothing is everything to the liberated. So nothing means everything. To the liberated, to those, and to the enlightened, nothing means everything. But to the unenlightened, everything means nothing. Choose your side, guys. Choose your side. Can you imagine somebody's like, yo, what did Mr. Within talk about? Nothing. I'm going to ask this question from ChatGPT. I think the computer might explode. Is nothing nothing? Or is nothing everything? Oh my god, guys, ChatGPT is writing text that looks like the middle finger. I'm joking. Okay. Okay, check this out. So that when I said is nothing everything, ChatGPT is like non-dualistic perspective, and some non-dualistic philosophies, such as Advaita Vedanta, it is suggested that the ultimate reality is beyond the duality of something and nothing. It posits that the true nature of existence is a unified whole in which all apparent distinctions and dualities dissolve. From this perspective, nothing and everything are not separate entities, but different expressions or aspects of the same underlying reality. That means, like, truth had spare time to be nothing and everything. But that would be genius, right? I think I'm thinking right now, like, okay, as someone who writes, short stories, science fiction, novels, and whatnot, it's as if, like, imagine you as the novelist, as the author, right? How would you create a character that would have no clue, that would not be able to see the author, right? How can you create a character that doesn't see the author, right? So the character has to be set in a story that, first of all, the story has to be so long and big that it never has time to question who the author is. But at the same time, if the character, let's say you write a short story, if that character in the short story wanted to know you, who you are, and imagine a character in a short story right? Suddenly, like, go meditates and suddenly comes into a divine audience with the author and says, "Yo, author, I want this. I want to succeed. I want to have that. I want to be this. Da 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 da." And the author's like, "Buddy, I'm writing the story." Do you understand? You see, this is why I think in religious, like esoteric wisdom, they're saying like you can realize the underlying nature of truth, but you're not like truth. Do you see? So it's kind of strange, you know. It's like the character wanting to write its own story is like acting like God. So free will is acting like God. But we obviously know, like, there's so many things beyond our control, beyond our free will. Like, my free will can move my body, but it can't move like other people. Unless, you know, I hit the gym and I'm like throwing people around. Guys, imagine, you know, like I start hitting the gym and, you know, people find me in the gym like super jacked, you know, and then they're like, "Mr. Within, you know, when are you are you gonna give the talks again?" And imagine like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be like, "I'll be back." Oh man. Oh man. Okay, anyways, I guess where I'm going with this is that Arnold Schwarzenegger was enlightened, guys. I don't know what it is, you know. It's as if like that character in a story written by the author. Like if I wrote a character right now, you know, it's like, can the character have a consciousness outside of the story, right? It would no longer be a character; it would just be a thought in my mind, right? So imagine like, you know, I write one short story and then I go on to write another short story and I'm inspired to have the same qualities of the character, right? We think the soul is going from lifetime to lifetime, but what if it's the qualities that are going from lifetime to lifetime? Do you understand? That means like if I write a short story and there was a character that was born and died in that short story, and then I write another short story and then I write a character similar to that character, right? It would be as if it's not that same character. It's like a completely new story, right? But the qualities are the same. So it could be that this view that the self is going from lifetime to lifetime is wrong, right? It could be that the soul, transmigratory soul view going from lifetime to lifetime, that's not it. It's the qualities. So it's as if me as an author, like how was I inspired by my previous short story to write a new short story, right? So if right now, let's say, imagine there's an author so next level, he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna allow this character in the story to become an author like myself." Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying like when you write a story, it's as if first in your inner realms it manifests, then in the outer realms you write it down. You see something, you see a vision in your inner realms, in your mind, and then you're like, okay, I saw this character, let's say, with, you know, hover hands. You know. People are like, what are hover hands, Mr. Within? It would be a world where people, they could like, you know, do a handstand and then somehow their hands, like they could hover, but they can't hover on their feet. So anyways, back to this idea. Character in a short story, the author, imagining the character, creates a character in the short story that is like pure and nothing can happen to it, like a prophet or something. And then this character comes and tells all the characters in the story, "Yo, you guys can actually, like, you know, connect to the author, right? It's kind of, I think this is a next level metaphor. Like, and it's honestly like the pen is the angel, and God is the author, and the world is the empty page, and who the character is what is being written. Because in the view of the angels, the idea of the angel is a being that cannot do anything other than listen to the divine will. It's like the pen has to be moved by the hand of the author, right? So how can a character in a story, like what kind of truth can a character in a story have? And imagine the character is telling the author what to write. The author's like, yo, man, you're just a bunch of words on a piece of paper, that's like, know your place. But I guess the freedom would be that the character, like the character in the short story, realizes its characteristics have been presented there for the story, right? And imagine somebody like prays and says, God, give me this, give me that, like a desire, like asking for things. But God is writing the story. Do you understand? Like the character's opinion, excuse me, like all the character in the short story needs to do is just to accept its part. I think this is it. Like, even if you're enlightened, let's say the character realized, the author realized the pen moving, like the person was, I don't know, communicating with the logos, with angels, right? But then you see the author is writing the story. That means it's not our life. Like in the story, yes, it is our life, but what is writing the story is not our life. So this is bizarre. I've never said this, I think, but it's as if truth is not our life, but it's writing our life. So it's as if no human being is truth, or they could be like a limited truth. But when I write a short story, I'm not just thinking about the character, I'm thinking about like the character development. Like if I create a character, I'm thinking about the karma of that character as well, right? And maybe that's the part, maybe like the author was like, yo, this character's gonna give a bunch of talks. And then, it's like, a few people are gonna notice it. And then this character's gonna talk about the author, and then realize it's not the author. And so to have the expectation of an author as a character in a short story, like it's meaningless, right? Not that it's meaningless, but it's as if it's so what I'm trying to say is we can act as gods of lesser worlds, but we are the characters of higher ones. So if somebody is asking like what is are you the personality, are we the personality, I'm starting to realize this idea of being a soul is a little egotistical. Imagine all the enlightened gurus are like, what did this guy just say? me explain why. Because we are the character in the story. I am the existence in the now, you know. And the incredible thing is that when the world is changing, that means it's like the author is not done writing the story. But of course, monotheistic religion says the story is finished. Like that's what destiny means, right? Destiny means the end was known from the beginning. So if a character in a story realizes that before it was a character, it was the author's mind. This might be a bizarre statement, but before, like if the world is God's will, it's as if existence is God's body. And before God's body moves, God's mind moves, right? So it's as if the inconceivable's vision. What it means is like our souls or destiny how would I say this? I'm trying to think like if an inconceivable being authored a conceivable character. I'm like trying to say just like an inventor gets a vision for an invention and then invents it in the outer realms. Like it's kind of like our the character is alive in like this is a bizarre. I mean, I'm not trying to humanize the idea of God. I'm just a human trying to look at it from different angles. But it's like it's as if the soul is God's thought, and the body is like how that thought was written down on a piece of paper. Guys, I remember something hilarious, There were these two, I have a twin brother, and when me and my twin brother were young, we had two, what do you call it? Two distant cousins that were like, I think like both of them were like, they weren't twins, but I think one of them was a year older or something. And we would hang out with them, and they would show me and my brother like heavy metal. And I remember we were watching Godzilla, right? And then I don't know why I said, "Yo," we were watching the second Godzilla movie, I think. And then I was like, "Yo, in the first Godzilla movie, at the end of it, the only thing that remains," I was speaking in Farsi, and I was saying there remains like one chicken egg, tofu more, right? And then all my cousins and my brother looked at me. They're like, "A chicken egg?" Yeah. Yeah, sorry guys, irrelevant, but just the memory came. So I guess the conclusion I'm reaching here is that if the character in the story expects to be the author of the world, then it realize it can't be. It could be author of a lesser world. That means the human being can simulate a world and act like the god of it, right? But we're actually a character in the story, and whether it's like the metaphor of chess pieces or the metaphor of an author writing things, it's as if I've experienced this in just writing stories where, believe it or not, and I've noticed this, that in my stories, like in all the stories I've written, the characters don't die. It's like the context just changes. So if I was a character in a story written by, let's say, a creative or creator author, all I can do is be like, okay, I'm not writing the story. So the character, whatever amount of desires it has, whatever amount of expectations it has, it exists to serve the story development. So whoever you are, whether you think you're like, I mean, like, it would be such a boring story, right? If all the characters were the same, right? Like that would be the weirdest story, you know? It's like, yeah, you know, in this world, everybody was great from the beginning, and people are like, okay, what happened then? It's like nothing. It's everybody was great from the beginning. Guys, right now I'm in a place called Studio City in Dubai, for those curious, and also for those who don't care. So I guess after saying all of this, I have reached this conclusion that one, the character in the story is a character, it is not an author. It is not the author. If the character has expectations from the author, it depends on the author's will. It depends on the inspiration of why the creator created creation in the first place. What sort of story is truth trying to tell? And you know what's bizarre? When someone writes a story, like when you write a short story, I mean, sure, you're writing it for yourself at first, but you're actually, let's say you want to write a bestseller or something, you're writing it for others, which makes me think, like there's a polytheistic explanation here to this, where it's as if there's a god creating a world so other gods can see. It's like writing a short story so other people can read. Like an author writes a short story so other authors and other people can read it. but if there is an only God is alone, like only they say God alone is. So it's as if like is an inconceivable truth that is, let's say, a sort of unification or non-duality. It's like the character in the story, whatever it likes or dislikes, it will end up being what the author wanted. I think this is why thoughts appear out of nowhere sometimes, and we don't have a choice. We just act. Our choice comes after, right? We have choice in the effect position, but not in the causal position. So anybody claiming they're enlightened is like a character in a short story being like, I'm the author. Do you know? I mean, no, but you're not the author, but you are the author's will. You are necessary for the author. So it's as if even if my life is meaningless to me, to others, to the world, but to the author, to the creator, it is not meaningless. That means whoever you are in this life, even if you feel meaningless as a creation, you have meaning for the creator's expectation of its own ability. You see, it's not just man performing in front of man, measuring his own performance. It's also God's will, right? Like when somebody does a backflip, it's like or there's this soccer technique, like, you know, called around the world, right? It took me a while to get it, to be able to do it, and its value was initially for me just to see, can I do it? Is it possible? Right? And maybe this is a bizarre statement, and of course I'm saying it, let's say, through the philosophical, you know, context of wondering about its mystery. But it's as if God created man, created the world to see what's created creation, to see what sort of creation do you see. It's as if, why is God testing us? God is not testing us. God is testing us to in some sense get a verification of testing itself, because an ultimate being, how can an ultimate being know it's ultimate? How can the author know it can write the story, write a good story, write an epic story? And they're just like in I believe this is mentioned in the Islamic holy text, the Quran, where I remember just opening the Quran, this was like years ago, opening the Quran, and there was a part where it said, I don't remember exactly the terms, but the idea that at the time if I remember correctly, what it was saying like, who do you think you are trying to in some sense save the world? Do you know, when God has in some sense wiped out civilizations before you? You know? And it was in that moment I knew, it's like, oh my God, giving these talks has just become a bit more difficult. So what I'm saying, guys, is first of all, I'm not saying about how to live as a body. Many people have talked about that. How to live as a mind. Many people have talked about it. I'm just saying, as a being in a world, the mystery of the shape of us. I think I have come to a sort of contentment finally. The contentment is that the character in the story could be like, God, make me the greatest, the best character. But it's as if that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is what sort of character is necessary, right? Like, as if when you write a story, you write the details. You're like, okay, the guy was walking, like in a forest, right? And there were squirrels, and there were like birds, and there were, I don't know, like, you see, like, it's as if everything that exists has a value in the development of the whole thing, but anything in the story cannot know the development of the whole thing because it's being like the story. So it's as if existence cannot know why it's existing. It's very difficult. I wanted to say it cannot know it's existing beyond itself, but that means, imagine there, I write a short story about, okay, a human being on Earth is giving a talk in Dubai, right? And then the human being notices he's giving a talk in Dubai and notices that it's like, the content is coming. But the significance of the character in the story is not for the character to not be a character. I think this is why, and the only way, if the character accepts that, all right, I'm a character being written, being authored in a world, and because I am not writing the story of the whole world, what can I expect from it? And all those people who realize non-duality, like, what is that realization? That realization is the character realizing whether it thinks it's a character, whether it thinks it's an empty page, what difference it is. The whole story is the whole story. I think I've reached this point where it doesn't make sense to have an opinion on why the opinions are there. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, And the cool thing about this is that how they say, like, the idea of angels guiding man and bringing forth revelation, it's as if the pen, when the author writes something, right, the author sees the future, right? When you write something, it's as if you've, let's say you've written a paragraph, and then you see, so you envision something different, like some cinematic thing you see in your inner realms. Then you, when you start to write the next paragraph, you already know what you're gonna write. So it would be another way of saying, and change the world existence already, not existence knows, but it is known how existence changes before existence changes. And it depends on the author, the type of ending we have. So we act like we own our beginnings. But how can you own the ending? It's like, imagine any character you write in a short story becomes conscious and it's like, yo, why am I being this character? It's like, you can only know that you are being the character. So I would say the ultimate contentment for the character in the story is to have faith. Is to have faith in the author. Because we don't know what type of character is necessary for the future. You know, maybe in the future it's necessary that, you know, I don't exist. Or maybe it's necessary I exist for some time. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like from the character in the story can just know the moment it's present, but it's like it to know the future. That means if I don't know, let's say I've talked a lot about the future in these talks, and I keep telling people I just press the microphone and like this stuff, it's kind of automated to some degree. So I guess my conclusion is, if I were to have an opinion, or if I was to wonder about the existence of my existence, it would not be my existence. So when Shakespeare said to be or not to be, I understand that differently. To not be, to be is to be human, this human. To not be human. To not be. So to be is like us being human. To be or not to be. The not to be part is to realize it's the author. So what faith, Iman, means, like, I don't know if people know this, but my name is Amin, A-M-I-N. And if you replace, like if you replace the letters, it also comes to the word Iman, I-M-A-N. Excuse me, which means faith. So it's like saying, if the character in the story can trust the story beyond the story, it's kind of like the whole. So, it's okay, I heard that. Thank you. So, I guess this is my update from this episode. That the character doesn't need to doubt that it's a character in a world. And all that the character in the story can do is have faith in the author's penmanship. I think that's the finale. So if the character can accept how it's a character, accept the setting, and accept just the world, it's like inside the story there's a point to everything the character does. But if the character was to think beyond the story I'm in, what is the point? The point, it's pointless to the character, but it has a very profound point to the author. The author understands what the character in the story cannot. So I guess if I am in a short story right now, all that I can do is be the part of the short story I am. That means whatever amount of enlightenment, whatever amount of spiritual realization, the author knows what the character does not, cannot. And what is the ultimate state? It's not like the character stops being a character in the story, right? It's like, imagine somebody's writing a story and says, okay, then the character sat down in a cave for the whole time. You know, sometimes I've thought that it's like there's three things, right? It's like accepting ourselves, accepting others, and accepting the world. And if we can accept ourselves, that means the character in the story understands it's a character for a reason beyond its reason. And others exist for a reason beyond their reasons. And the world exists for a reason beyond its reason. Its reason. So my conclusion is, if the conceivable character in the story, in the changing story of the world, can have faith in the inconceivable author, its task is complete, and then the author knows how everything must be lived. So in 2023, Jabir Ansari has faith in inconceivable. All the problems is because the character cannot accept it's a character. The problem of people in the world, they can't accept the simple level of how things are just being authored. There are forces moving us, invisible forces. Think about it. The pen that writes on the piece of paper, the two-dimensional story, the pen is a different dimension. It's like a 90-degree angle. Do you understand? That means a vertical eternity is writing a horizontal temporality. This is the ultimate, I think. At least for me, in this moment. I cannot see any more than the author's will. The author's will surpasses the character's will. The character in the story does something bad. does something good, and people are like, yo, is the author going to send the character to heaven or hell? But the author writes what based on the inspiration of the story, what is necessary for the whole story, which means that in the state of iman, in the state of faith, there is no good or bad. I think this is why when somebody does bad in religion, it says don't do bad back. It's strange, I'm having a feeling for the first time in this life that my existence doesn't belong. The story doesn't belong to the character in the story. The story is not being written by the character in the story. Which means there is nothing to do. Not for the character in the story, I'm saying beyond the awareness that goes beyond the character in the story. What can there be? And you know, I'm getting the sense that the divine factor of this world is all the beings that have manifested here. They're here to realize it's all being authored by the beyond. The beyond is the author of that which considers. And you know, I was reading earlier how in the state of moksha, when the person attains moksha, they don't have new karma. They don't get new karma, but their past karma fulfills. So the new karma is, in some sense, when there's no new karma, it's as if the character doesn't have an expectation. And then the author writes what is necessary. And all these enlightened gurus like Nishir Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, Papaji, Moji, all these guys are saying it's like that. I am that. But I think the sentence should be, I am that if I am not. This consciousness that right now is giving the talk is not the point. Which is very bizarre, because for the first time I'm feeling my life is not the point of this life. Like the author's vision of what should happen in the story is so beyond what the character can expect inside the story. That all, if, you know, it's as if like if our prayers are answered, they are answered beyond our reasons, beyond our reasoning. So if the world is the empty page, if the character is the words written, the story, the words written on the empty page, if the pen is the soul of all. This might sound bizarre. We have this view that everybody has souls, but it could be that it's one pen writing the whole story. And the author is not the pen. That means any divine sign, like the individual gets, it's from God, but it is not God. Which is very bizarre, because to worship revelation, for the first time, it's like I'm seeing a difference between revelation, worshiping revelation, and worshiping truth. Because truth is inconceivable. How can a conceivable being worship the inconceivable? It just comes to faith. And a faith that is, it's like an opinionless faith. Somebody says in the chat section, can you make faith happen? That's my point. The character in the story doesn't know what the author intends, so doesn't know what is necessary. So its faith would be, in some sense, the acceptance of its moment. Because imagine you write a character in the story, and instead of the character in the story living its life in the story, the character in the story is constantly thinking about the author. Unless it's a transcendental story. I would say faith translates as accepting the inconceivable's genius. And honestly, guys, I've reached this point. Where if I see there is something wrong in this life, if I see there is something right in this life, I am not the author. I am a character in the story. Which is bizarre, because it's like the soul freed the mind from itself, and the mind freed the body from itself, and the body was free. Have faith in the penmanship of the author of the world, for the pen moves beyond what the character can expect. to accept the truth beyond truth. That means this is, you want to know what faith is. Faith is appreciating and accepting what is being authored. The author knows beyond what the character can. I think that's one of the most beautiful views I've ever fathomed. And once you have that, let's say once there is the faith of a character that it's okay, whatever story it's in. The faith beyond life is the freedom from it. Thank you for listening. You know, I wrote, before I finish, guys, I wrote this thing on a window, on this glass thing of my house. And it was, and this was in Canada, and I wrote, God knows that Amin, which is my name, knows. Then what was it? God knows that Amin knows. God, oh my God, what was it? Okay, I don't remember it exactly. Maybe in the future. I have a picture of it in my phone, but it's, I don't know where it is. I think it was maybe something like Amin knows that God knows, Amin doesn't know. Maybe it was something like that. But to appreciate our life, or to appreciate the world where our life happens. The character that trusts the empty page, the story of the world, and that which is moving it, which is the force of change. Trust, faith is like trusting the author. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Good night. The eternal smile arrives.